The Kenya Editors Guild National Dialogue on Elections. My name is Kwamchetsi Magoha. I'm a journalist and a member of the Kenya Editors Guild. We are here to have a conversation because I believe the journalists and editors believe that they facilitate conversations. So we are very proud to be able to facilitate this conversation among us as nationals of Kenya. I know that we also have friends of Kenya in the room about our preparedness for this year's August 9th election. But before we begin, I would like to request that we get comfortable so that we know who is in the room and proceed. I would like to invite the leadership of the Kenya Editors Guild to come and explain to us what we are doing here and why we are here. And we are very honored. We are very honored to have Ms. Pamela Sitoni, who is a trustee of the Kenya Editors Guild and chair of the strategy committee, who will give her remarks on behalf of the president of the guild. Pamela Sitoni is, she doesn't look it, but she's an old hand. She's been in this business for a very long time. She has covered, I think if I remember, she has reported 5 elections. You have to forgive me, Pamela. Now I'm revealing your real age. And she has covered elections since 1992, so she's very knowledgeable. She's very knowledgeable about the subject that we are speaking about. And she's been in decision-making positions, of course, and right now she's executive editor in charge of partnerships at the National Group. So that's her day job. But as a good citizen, she's a leader. She's a leader for the Kenya Editors Guild. I would kindly request Pamela to come and
colleagues from civil society, colleagues from the police, colleagues from media, and all protocols observed, good morning. I know that according to the program, most of you are expecting our President, Churchill Otieno, to open this meeting. Unfortunately, he had commitments that he could not step out of, and he therefore asked me to speak instead. So you will have to bear with me. Instead of seeing a tall, dark, and everything man here, you have to bear with looking at me as I make a few remarks. So thank you for the opportunity to make a few remarks on behalf of the Kenya Editors Guild. The Guild is indeed very honored to convene this gathering of great minds to talk about our state of preparedness as a country as we go into the elections, and we are looking forward to a fruitful engagement. As you know, media, as part of civil society, has a duty to keep power in check for the benefit of the larger society. This National Dialogue Forum is a chance for us to reflect on how well we have played this role and what opportunities exist to improve. We are interested in genuine feedback, good and bad, and we are keen to progressively improve our work as we go towards the elections. We, acting jointly and singly, individually and as corporates, will provide platforms for accountability in the elections. Let me just state from the onset that the Kenya Editors Guild stands for professional excellence and media freedom. In an electoral context, this means accuracy and fairness in reporting. And core to this is fact-checking claims made by aspirants and candidates and promoting accountability journalism. And I am confident that all journalists represented here and all media houses represented here are all looking to do a professional job as we head towards the elections, guided by these principles. So towards this end, the Guild is conducting targeted training on election reporting for newsrooms to prepare all our journalists for coverage of the August general election. And we would like to commend the individual journalists who have ethically reported on the election so far, the media enterprises who have found creative ways to deliver content of substance on the elections. We are aware that the news media is working through several challenges currently. A shift in business fortunes has left us with smaller newsrooms, many of them in the hands of very young journalists. We also have a proliferation of FM stations upcountry and in the city that need mentorship and guidance to grow and mature. The Guild is keen to work with true democrats to perform this role, since journalism is required more now than before, given the spread of disinformation, hate, and attacks, especially through the social media. Let me take a moment to comment on an issue that has engaged us as media practitioners for some time now, and it's a rather disturbing issue for us. This is the question of when and how journalists seeking elective positions should vacate the newsrooms. The fact is that many are keen to influence the editorial space and, by extension, the electoral space. In this season, most of those working very hard to interfere with our newsrooms are the politicians themselves, but also, unfortunately, a number of state agencies. We have seen and heard some state agencies in recent weeks show a growing quest to lord it over journalists. This, I'd like to say, is a direct attack on media freedom. The Kenya Editors Guild's position on the conduct of journalists in the run-up to the election, including who should or should not be in the newsroom, is very well known. It is not the communication authority's role to instruct journalists on when to leave the newsroom, because we know by law that the CA's mandate ends with the owners of broadcast stations and not practitioners. The Guild, therefore, respectfully asks the CA, as well as the Media Council of Kenya, to stop their demands on journalists, because we know that the decision as to who fits to be in the newsroom is the remit of editors and the employers who have contracts with those journalists. Lastly, let me promise you that in the coming days, we will hear more on what the media plans ahead of the general elections, especially around the presidential debates. We at the Guild, once again, sincerely look forward to working with you, our partners, to give Kenyans a free, fair, and peaceful election this year. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much. and of course he has to continue to observe the safety guidelines in observing along. So we are now entering the formal keynote session. We are going to jig the program around a little so that we don't just bring excitement. And the person that we are going to bring to the fore at the moment is going to join us online. She has done extensive work on elections. She has served as an ambassador of this country, and she is a director at Southeastern Kenya University. Dr. Ambassador Koki Muli Winyon is going to speak to us about election preparations from a vantage point of somebody who has been a key influencer and for a very long time led this country's election observation effort. If you are available, Dr. my friend, please take the microphone.
Fantastic. Good morning, everyone. And thank you very much for inviting me to this important dialogue.
There was a decision that came the same day in the afternoon that reaffirmed the supremacy of the law and the Constitution. And therefore, that's what we call, that's what we appreciate and we see as some of the lights in the darkness, and that give us hope. And therefore, my request really is that please help us sort of adhere to the rule of law, set the standards, set the bar, and make this an issue-based campaign that enables us to actually focus our conversations to the content that enables Kenya to move forward, and to hold everybody who is in the campaign trail accountable for what they're saying, for what they're doing, for what they're promising. And I know that it is possible for us to be able to move Kenya forward if we all work in cooperation. And just to say lastly that there are many people like us in universities and us who have certain experiences we can share with you. Please do not hesitate to call on us anytime that we can be able to shed light or to share our experiences, or even to have a dialogue like this one. And I know that Kenya deserves the best, and I know that in that room that I can see, there are all of you that are interested in doing the right thing. And I thank you for inviting me, and I'm very excited that you are willing to move this agenda forward and to ensure firm accountability and adherence to the rule of law and the electoral code of conduct. Thank you very much, and good morning.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Koki Muli, Director of Council Affairs, Linkages and Programs at Southern Eastern Kenya University. We have been sufficiently chastised. Those of you who are editors, you have been sufficiently chastised. As Koki, I can confirm that as Koki mentioned, she and I committed crimes together in checking the 2007 election. And I think our work was not in vain, but they were not really like crimes. We were actually trying to expose the crimes. I would like to recognize the presence of the Registrar of Political Parties, my sister Anne Deritu. Anne Deritu. I did not intend to shorten your name. Editors tend to do that. They tend to shorten things. I'm going to call here an editor of long standing, and I will not give him as much leeway as I did Koki Muli. As you are aware, I mean, as you could see, I'm very partial to Koki. She's my sister, so I allowed her leeway to have a little more time. The guy I'm going to call here is my brother too, but he's an editor. And editors are people who are trained to perform surgery without anesthesia. So the Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Journalists, Mr. Eric Oduor, is here, and I would like to invite him to make his remarks in the context of what Koki has just spoken about in terms of, yes, leading the conversation and setting the agenda, being factual, yes, but what if all the preparations sometimes are heading a country into an election that is not likely to be free of them? What then should journalists be doing? Eric, please come and take it away.
So thank you so much, Jesse. Sometimes it's an honor to be speaking when you have your bosses and your seniors also as the participants. You can see my boss Pamela is here, my senior from Chesi, my colleague Olo Janak. I also see the Registrar of Political Parties present. You can also see a representative from IBC also present because she's part of the discussion we're having here, because we've got a media task force that is going to see how we can coordinate on access to information. First of all, I must just want to reinforce a point here that my boss had said here, Pamela, but before I say that, I may say that let me wear my hat as a Secretary General of Kenya Union of Journalists, because it gives me the leeway to speak free without fear or being intimidated. But I don't speak like my boss, Francis. I don't say Shensi. I will say that, first of all, sometimes it pains me if you want to describe incompetence. We all know that we are going again to have elections in 2027, isn't it? The same way immediately we had elections in 2017, we knew we'll have elections in 2022, and we've been seeing all along. Now you want to give directions using a press statement that this is what the media is supposed to do. When you had all 5 years to develop policy that can streamline and manage the industry. So I'm just trying to reinforce what we are seeing right now, excesses from the executive. To control and try to intimidate the media as we prepare for elections in August 9th. When we had all 5 years, when we could engage and develop policies to guide the media on how we are going to do this. So we want to do that using a press statement. You know, there is no way you can describe incompetence. But having said that, media and accountability is a very important subject that we must discuss. And also just let me recognize Koki Muli. Chesi, one thing maybe you didn't mention. Koki Muli has been a friend of the media when she was at the Institute for Education and Democracy. I remember when we worked with her as a member of Kenya Parliamentary Journalists Association, the mark she left there, actually we felt it for over 5 years, because she was able to help Kenya Parliamentary Journalists Association to set up a secretariat, equip it, and financed it. And when she left, when she was appointed ambassador, KPJ actually has been experiencing problems. So you can see some of the problems and people who actually have helped us to address some of the problems as the media. So what are we doing as the media as we prepare for elections? And I was saying that there is no way you can describe and define incompetence if we still want to do things the same way we did in 2017. And I was in a meeting in Brussels where I was asked by my colleagues there if Kenyan journalists are still going to participate in the murder of democracy as it was witnessed in 2017. So that is a question that we have to ask ourselves as editors and as journalists in this country. Are we going to be part of the conspiracy to murder democracy and run away from accountability? So how are we going to do it differently? And I was asking this question again so that we brief. Are we still going to camp at the Bomas of Kenya and send the top editors and journalists at the Bomas of Kenya so that when the screen freezes there, all the countries in darkness, we don't know information that are going to be in the country. And I'm talking in terms of access to information. Is there a way we can do it differently? So that by midnight, we should be able to announce the outcome of results in all the 290 constituencies. Don't we do that in the by-elections? We do that. But here, we want to go and send all our best reporters and the resources and Center Media Center at the Bomas of Kenya. I think I was at KICC in 2007. So that when Kivitu came there and said that I don't have results, I can't trace my returning officers from the 210 constituencies done, then the media has waited and said, no, so what do we do? Yet we have the capacity to have journalists in all the 290 constituencies, so that by midnight, we have all the information. Let me call it information, and tell Kenyans that this is what has happened in all the 290 constituencies. We need still go to work and camp at the Bomas of Kenya, guys. I think this is a conversation we must have as editors, and see how are we going to do it differently this year. Having said that, how can we raise the bar? And actually that's what Koki said, that we need to raise the bar. Because Kenyan media is one of the best in Africa. And people want to learn from us. So if people want to learn from us how we participate in the murder of democracy, I think is a big challenge to us. So how can we do it differently and reinvent ourselves and tell the whole world that Kenyan media can do better? Because one, they say, and in the meeting I was in Brussels, they said, number one, we have the technology. Kenya has got the best technology in Africa. If you look at the terms of equipment, terms of how best we have equipped our studios. If it comes to in terms of human resource, we have the best journalists. We have award-winning journalists in Kenya. So how can we reinvent ourselves and this year tell the whole world that Kenyan media can do better? Because that is how they say it. We can help the democracy in Kenya to grow. But if we still want to participate in mediocrity, woe unto us. And there's something about agenda setting. Yes, we have to set the agenda. And we are not supposed to be following what politicians are saying. Because that is, again, another accusation that actually has been leveled against us. That we go with what politicians say. We need to interrogate these issues. And how can we set the agenda so that the politicians can follow what the media as the voice of the society? And that's why we're here. Because next week we'll be having an inclusive meeting of the media industry. Probably we'll have it here in another hotel here in the CBD, so that we can also tell the country that this is how the media is prepared to cover this year's elections, differently from how we've done it in the past. So how do we set the agenda as editors? Do we need to go to the politicians and say what the politicians say? Because I know 2 weeks ago, as much as this has not been reported, but actually there's a serious indictment on the media when it comes to the elections amendment laws, because we misled the country. We went with what politicians told us. No, these are the truth and these are the realities. Election amendment laws, we misled the country because we did not read the law or the proposed amendments. We went with what politicians told us, what the Tangatanga told us, and what Azimio told us. We did not go with what was in the amendment. That's the reality. So you can expect that's what we are going to say when it comes to election. That's what I'm saying. We want to go to the Bomas of Kenya and say that Chebukati said A, B, C, D. Instead of going to the polling stations and say that in the polling station A, this is what happened and this is the results. We want to go to the Bomas of Kenya and say what Chebukati said. That's the reality. That we want to do what people tell us and not what is there. If we read the Election Amendment Act, we wouldn't have been embarrassed the way we've been embarrassed. Somebody said that doctors, they bury their mistakes, but for us, we expose them. So we exposed ourselves. Those are the realities. I want to finish by saying that, but as we go out there as journalists, please also allow us to do our work. We've seen circumstances whereby we have been denied access. So if you deny us access to information, it becomes difficult for us to inform the country. We've seen situations where journalists have been attacked. where journalists have been barred from accessing the polling stations. And I think this is the discussion, and IBC's here. I think they'll tell us how best can we collaborate to ensure that we access polling stations and be able to report the election results and the information. And I still insist, we do not have to go to Bomas of Kenya and wait for Chebukati to tell us that at Moi Avenue Primary School polling station, candidate A got 9 votes and candidate B got 6 votes. When it's just here, you can go there and do it. So that is the challenge that we have this year, ladies and gentlemen. We must roll up our sleeves and do this work differently. I say that if I'm wearing my hat as a union leader, sometimes I'm allowed to speak and say some words because I'm supposed to do that. And I want to say that if we want to remain missionary the way we were 20 years ago, then we still want to be missionary this year again, 2017, 2022. I think that is the challenge that I want to leave you with. Can we do it differently this year around and reinvent ourselves so that people can remember us? Because if we do not save this country, this election, people say, oh, this is going to be a contested election. How? If you go to Moi Avenue Primary School here and say that candidate A got 9 votes, candidate B got 6 votes, candidate C got 2 votes, how is it going to be contested? But if you want to go to Bomas of Kenya and start announcing what IBC wants you to hear, I think we will be failing. So I hand over to my senior, so that we allow the conversation to go on and give us feedback, because like I said, next week we'll have a media industry meeting so that we can also have the interrogation and give feedback and see what else can we do differently this year and save this country. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. You know, I didn't know that when retired generals give orders, they are still obeying. So, Eric, thank you for keeping to your time. You know, since I was at the front line a long time ago, so sometimes when I give orders, I'm not sure that they are going to be obeyed. I'm going to invite the speakers at the next session. Those are the members of the panel. And we have Mr. Lucas Kimathi, who is Assistant Director at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. He will be joined on the stage, there is space, he will be joined on the stage by the Executive Director of Crown Trust, Ms. Daisy Amgali, who will also be joined by Mr. Jared Oju of the Office of the Inspector General of Police, and Madam Alice Delto. Now I have your name right. Forgive me if I don't go in the order that the names are written, but I'm going to try and create problems. And so I will not start in the order of seniority, but I think let's start with the person sitting in the hot seat. Everybody knows that political parties are the vehicles through which our democracy is delivered. And I'm very grateful that finally you're in office. You know that office, I don't know if that chair feels cold because it was unoccupied for 7 years. That obviously means that you had a lot of work to do, but a lot of us appreciate what you've done so far. And I know you've spoken at a previous editors convention about the preparations you've made. But specifically for purposes of our discussion, there are 2 things that I hope that you're able to address. One, there is now a new law on political parties coalition making, which is being challenged. But how does that affect your work? And secondly, as a nominal woman, I would like to know how political parties are going to be encouraged and helped to comply with the 2/3 gender principle. If you can go. 5 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you all participants. I first of all recognize the importance of this forum, especially at a time like this when we are less than 6 months to elections. And I also want to note the very cooperative Kenyan media this time round, and specifically for our office, we have seen the support that media has given us in terms of giving information and helping us really get the information out there to the public. But before I respond to the two questions, I want to note and identify with the earlier speaker that Eric, that it is very important that the media, especially when it comes to electoral rules and processes, that there is a deep understanding, and that the media and the reporters and editors go out of their way to ensure that the correct situation is reported. We have experienced when the amendment bill, Political Parties Amendment Bill 2021 was going through, it was almost impossible to separate the facts and fiction as the discussions went on, because it mattered from which lens a given media house is looking at the bill politically speaking. Looking at that, then it calls for us to really interrogate our reporting and also our understanding of the laws and the various processes, so that when our media houses speak and the journalists and everybody, then we are not misreporting or misleading the country. But I want to thank each and every media house represented here, because anytime they have an issue, they have been able to reach out to us, and we are available for clarification. I think that should continue. If there's nothing that is clear, then we are able to clear. Coming to the new law, the question have been asked about coalition party. I first of all want to say the law is beyond the coalition party. First of all, calling it coalition party law. Coalition party law was only one paragraph in that law. It's actually only the definition, an additional definition of a political party, and then a few provisions about that. But the whole law had over 40 paragraphs. So when you called it coalition law, and then the debate went around only about the coalition law, then we missed some of the important provisions in that particular law. For example, the law also talked about how best to look at the question of party primaries from a perspective of regulator, not from a perspective of a conductor, or what we can say, somebody running the elections, but from a perspective of a regulator. And the law provided that, has provided, because it's already law now, has provided that for a political party to hold credible party primaries, the regulation function of it, which is the Office of Registrar, is to ensure that the political parties are holding their party primaries using their political parties register, their own political parties register, which is, in another way, moving from an open party primaries to closed party primaries, which is the practice internationally, that parties are supposed to be held using the membership register of their own parties, as opposed to opening up party primaries that anybody can vote in this party primary and vote in party X and then move in party B and C and still vote. When we were doing the research on that particular provision, we had people who are saying that in the last general election, they were able to vote even 15 times in party primaries. One lady specifically, which is documented in our record, told us she voted 15 times. 7 in one political party and 8 in different other political parties. So when we talk about membership register, then we are actually saying that let's close party primaries to only be held by members of that particular political parties. The other issues that are being raised there are questions of transparency and openness to the party primaries. For example, when you hold party primaries, then you submit the date when the party primaries will be held. You also submit the time, the date, and the polling station where the party primaries will happen. Who will vote? Is it a delegate system? Which system are you going to use during that party primaries? And then you put all those in your website, and the registrar will put also some of them in the website. So that does not amount to conducting of party primaries. The conduct of party primaries, it's important to know that that was the point of misreporting, that registrar will now be conducting party primaries, and therefore she is, on the office is micromanaging political parties. Far from the truth, and that is one of the issues we may want to clear, that we are not supposed to conduct party primaries, we are not supposed to micromanage political parties. Political parties are institutions of governance that should be able to run their own business and conduct their party primaries, and should they have a problem and they want to seek help, that help of conducting should be asked from IEBC, the Electoral Commission. Electoral Commission in the registrations, especially the Elections Act, a party can request the Electoral Commission to hold party primaries for them. So it is important to clear that, so that this element of saying that we are transferring services from some mandate of ORPP to of IBC to ourselves, it's far from the truth, because ours is only the regulation function. The question of a coalition party, as the question has been asked, how does it sit when it comes to the law? There's nothing much that has changed apart from the timeline of submitting a coalition. There are two ways of doing a coalition. The first way is through the ordinary coalition, where parties come together and they just file a coalition agreement. The second one is through forming a coalition political party. The difference is only in three levels. That first of all, the time of filing the coalition party is actually 4 months to the general election. But the ordinary coalition is 3 months to the general election. That is the first difference. That the second difference is that the coalition party is registered and issued with a certificate of registration, while the coalition, as we know it, ordinary coalition, is not registered in form of a certificate. 3, that a coalition party is able to field a candidate through its name and symbol, and then that person can appear through the name and symbol of a coalition party. Then a candidate can appear in the ballot paper. But in an ordinary coalition that we have been having, you cannot be able to file a candidate, and then you cannot be able to run in the ballot paper as a candidate of that coalition. And that is probably one of the reasons what this law was trying to cure. It was trying to cure where people popularize a coalition and a coalition candidate, and then when it comes to the day of voting, Kenyans cannot find the person that, the name of the party that the coalition was popularizing. And they became more of also a branding problem. You have branded this way all the way, and then when it comes to the day of voting, you find that you cannot find that name, nor the symbol of the coalition in the ballot paper. So with the coalition party, it is possible to have a candidate using that particular political party, because it's already a registered party. It is exempted from certain areas, from the elections. It is exempted from sections 5 and 6 in terms of some provision on registration of a political party, but many other things, it is still a party. I want to say that to us, it's just an extension of the right of association as captured in Article 38, because Article 38 gives political rights and right to association. If that is expanded and not violating any other right that has been given under the same article, then I don't think we have an issue. The other issue, you can see the coordinator is looking at me, I'm just finishing. The other issue is the question of 2/3 gender rule, as you have asked. The first thing is to see that this law also help to create a level playing field, especially during party primaries, so that it's possible to interrogate how the party primaries will be held because we have a register. And that will create a better level playing field. But in the nomination rules of every political party, they provided, the ones that were approved by IBC, they provided for how they will capture the 2/3 gender rule. One of the rulings that has been with us for the longest in 2017 said that the commission will only accept a list that is gender compliant in terms of aspirants and candidates that a party present. So what we are doing today is actually trying to train political parties on how to really do that business of ensuring that their register has not their register, their candidate list as they forward them to IBC, then have met the 2/3 gender rule. That means that if you have 15, you have 30, 10 of those candidates should actually be either gender. One of the challenges parties are complaining is probably these women are not there, and probably Daisy, who is sitting next to me here, who we know for sure, between me and her, we are very passionate about women participation. Where shall these women come from? My take, and what we have been discussing with political parties, is that they must go out of their way. Whenever it's an affirmative action, there must be people going out of their way to get people. You are actually bringing in the excluded to become included. So you must actually go fetch them, because somehow some of them do not exclusion. Some people who are excluded actually do not even know that they are excluded. So it's upon those people who know then to get out and get them and bring them in the fold, because they don't even know that they're excluded. And it's upon all of us, even as media, to make sure that women know that they actually need to join political parties and to participate and express interest of learning with the various political parties. And I know for sure, with the support of everyone and with support of many other duty bearers, then we'll be able to bring as many women in the fold, so that we are not only reacting but responding to the issues as they come. Thank you very much.
The next person is Mr. Jared Uju. We love our police, but you know, about 5 years ago, the police ran away from the protection that we had extended to them under the Constitution, requiring them to be independent. They ran away and they went for protection from the president. They said they don't want the Inspector General to be appointed directly by the Police Service Commission. They want the president to nominate. And the reason I'm raising this is that other than the 2013 election, which was run with an independent police service, all the other elections have had violence. Now, I don't know if you are able to speak to us about, one, the independence of the police to provide security for the election. That's one. And two, if we are going to experience the usual traditional police culture, which has been to profile certain spaces as hotspots, and therefore create an excuse to go into those spaces and generate violence. Mr. Only 10 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good morning once again. I appreciate this amendment because it helps us to highlight the issues as they are. Our earlier speaker said that you editors operate without the benefit of anesthesia. I'll be very careful to comment on that, because as a security person, sometimes you apply anesthesia in the interest of the public good. I also want to say that we as a country have made serious strides towards democratization. And as it were, democracy has been defined in many ways. But they also said that the hallmark of democracy is the stability of the police, the freedom of the media. And so I find this meeting appropriate for this discussion. This country, our beloved country, Kenya, elections are really not about the electioneering period like we are in right now. Against what people consider to be a 5-year term, I think in this country, elections are an everyday thing. As soon as we are through with 2022, people begin to campaign. And so I want to point out that policing elections is not about what we are doing now. Maybe we've enhanced it, but we have been policing elections right from the day we had our candidates declared, because immediately thereafter we saw people going out and seriously campaigning. Now, we in police appreciate the provisions in Article 38 of our Constitution. Free elections based on universal suffrage, and where Kenyans are able to express their political will freely. But that requires us to have an environment where it's considered safe, a safe environment, so to speak. Earlier on, as soon as I came in, Daisy engaged me in a discussion. It was concerned about female candidates. I read through what she was telling me, and she was telling me that the woman of this country does not feel safe to enter the political space. And I was asking myself, and I want to ask you also, who is responsible for this? Is it the police, which is failing us, or is it our attitude as a nation? No, that is food for thought. What has been defined as safe environment, largely, if I were to refer to our laws, is an environment where we are free from any form of intimidation. You feel safe, first of all. That environment is where everybody has equal access. So the woman, the young person, the disabled feel equally able to come out and speak without any fear. That environment is where the person who has ideas is not threatened by the person who has resources, because he's free from bribery. That environment is where a Kenyan living in certain parts of this country does not live with fear of being forced to leave because of the political affiliation they ascribe to. I want to congratulate our media, because I said that in this country, policy begins immediately after the August 8th. I mean, we will be back and we will start campaigning again. When the media points out these things, like people who go out spreading hate speech, people who are openly bribing members of the public in the name of treating them or whatever other way, or people who, by way of intimidation, make others feel so unsafe that instead of waiting to vote, they have to relocate for their own safety, then that would be the most effective form of policy. So I would, instead of going to talk about our preparations, I want to comment on what we have been doing this far. What we do now is what will determine the outcome of these elections. Because security agencies, as it were, I don't know whether this is unique to Kenya, we have a serious bearing on the outcome of any election. Because when Kenyans don't feel safe, then the democracy is not upheld. And so, I want to mention that we in police, Kenyans look to us. We've been informed that we need to be approachable, we need to be more civil, we need to be impartial. These are not just terminologies, but again I ask, what is the level of impartiality that you expect from a police officer who operates in a certain region where he is perceived, because it's never reality, is perceived otherwise? We have a challenge in this country that we profile people based on their names. And so, if today a police officer in a certain region bears a certain name, naming is right in this country, if we were to refer to our constitution, then people immediately begin to perceive him as of a certain affiliation. When the media comes out strongly to oppose such positions, then we are policing better. So I want us also to be on the lookout, because at a time like this you've heard from certain quarters, I don't want to mention names of people, individuals, or even parties, people saying, oh, police look biased, you see, they have failed to take action against this particular individual, and we have a feeling if it was this other person, maybe they would have acted differently. Well, there could be substance in these claims, but I also want us to be able to interrogate that term used previously. Can we interrogate and come out with the truth? Because if we fail to interrogate and then that position is escalated, then we end up with situations which may not be very desirable. Now, back to your question. You asked whether we are preparing ourselves. Of course we are prepared. The other day you saw we were launching a document which is meant to build capacity of our officers to be more civil, to be more appraised on matter selection. And for your information, every police officer by training, right from the recruits course, is well informed on the Elections Offences Act. So these are useful documents, this is useful information which every police officer is aware of. And so I feel we are adequately prepared, not just for this coming elections. We have been doing this right from the last elections, all through. Thank you.
Let's appreciate Mr. Ojuk. And please pass our compliments to the police service, that they are appreciated. And sometimes if we sound a little harsh, it is because security is right there in the right of life, right to life. I know Daisy is looking at me and she thinks she's the next. I would like to request the panelists, please, just to keep it to, if you can keep it under 10 minutes, so that we can also see how to manage our time and get a break. The next person, after the police have spoken, naturally has to be the Human Rights Commission. Now, Lucas, I know that my colleagues at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights work very hard, the Secretariat works very hard, but you have not had political leadership for almost 2 years. And you are just, I think, you are inducting the new commissioners. So I don't know how strong your voice is in terms of being able to speak up for the rights of Kenyans. We have a culture, and the National Commission on Human Rights has been at the forefront of speaking up for all Kenyans, both those who are mainstream and those who are marginalized. And there are concerns that the fact that there have been vacancies in that commission for almost 2 years, and the fact that not all positions have been filled, especially at the secretariat level, places you at a disadvantage. But maybe you will address those of us. How do we look like in terms of our state of human rights heading into the election? 10 minutes, please.
Thank you, Kwamcheshi. First, allow me to say that as a commission, we are really grateful for the organizers of this event. Secondly, I would also say that just like Koki Muli and Kwamcheshi, this is my 5th elections monitoring that I'll be doing. So you can guess where we are in terms of the experience. As a commission, I would say that we are prepared. Let me begin from your questions in terms of leadership. That this is not the first time the Kenya National Commission has suffered that fate of not having commissioners for a long period. And it also happens that the coincidence is usually almost at the point of elections. In 2013, we had a similar situation when we were starting the project. The terms for most of the commissioners ended, and the secretary had to carry on with the work. Same scenario in 2017. The commissioners who came in actually found us, midway. In 2022, similar situation. Of course, for obvious reasons, your guess would be as good as mine as to why the establishment keeps on delaying the appointment of commissioners, and they will come at a time when there are critical things that need to be done. But as a secretariat, we are usually very ready, even when the commissioners are not around. In terms of preparedness, allow me to say that as a commission, we've built a good base in terms of experience, having monitored political processes 2005, 2007, 2013, and recently 2017. For 2017, it was one of our biggest elections monitoring projects. And we did 4 reports out of it. The first one being on a very critical subject matter, party primaries. And we did a report titled The Fallacious Vote. Actually, my sister, Nerito, one of the things that can help the political parties and also your office is to look at the things that we put in that report. The issues that we're discussing here, political parties going for party primaries without registers. Political parties not very sure, of course it's deliberate, that they don't give a definite date for the party primaries. Allow me to give a short story. I know I've told this a number of times. That one of the polling stations for a political party, people will be registered as members, just like we did the registration out there. They'll get into the venue. Of course, at that point now they become members of the political party, and then they vote. We've documented all these things that, all that information is in that report titled The Fallacious Vote. Of course, our conclusion as a commission was that in 2017, we didn't have a resemblance of party primaries, but what we saw was simply a fallacy. We also monitored, the campaigns, the polling process, and also the repeat presidential elections. Then, in terms of also preparedness, what we've done is we've looked at the 2017, the 4 reports, because we've done so many recommendations based on what we documented to various stakeholders, including the media and other stakeholders. Allow me just to mention a few of the things that we put in the recommendations. And of course, we've also put together the recommendations in a booklet, so that you don't need to keep on referring to the 4 reports. but rather the single booklet is given all the recommendations. So the media, there are 5 key issues that we've recommended. One, it is the issue of fair coverage of candidates and aspirants. Whether in print media, whether in television, radio. Of course, you know what is happening right now, even before the campaigns officially started. That in certain radio stations, in certain TV stations, you hardly see or hear the voice of certain aspirants and candidates. The other recommendation is the issue of the political analysts, especially on the FM stations and also even on television. That as a commission, we were concerned that in 2017, some of the analysts, political analysts, some of them would be appearing on live coverage, and they would just say things which are out of, let's say, ignorance, things which don't feed into what we need to tell the masses, and therefore that is one of the key recommendations in our forum. Then, of course, the other issue of professionalism in sensitive reporting, especially where killings, where displacement of persons and such. And also, another recommendation we've done in our forum reports is that the media need to focus on party primaries. Reason being, the way we organize our politics in this country. Depending on the geographical, ethnic, and all that, that party primaries is a critical phase in this country. And of course, the other thing is that, of course, enforcement of ethics and code of conduct. Then the other thing that we've done as a commission, winding up, is that we've also done our strategy, which we published and launched on the 15th of December last year. And of course, in that strategy, we've indicated that we'll be focusing on the 4 critical phases of the election: the party primaries, during, and the post-election scenario. And therefore, then some of the things that we'll be looking at is mainly the issue of human rights within the elections, the conduct of the police, adherence of the rule of law, and so on and so forth. And therefore, as I wind up, then for us as a commission, that we are committed to be working with the media between now and by the time we are be having the elections and beyond. And therefore, the request that we are making as a commission is that as the media, as editors, one of the things that we want to see as a commission is critical analysis of the issues. The Secretary General, I was glad that he said that it's not just enough to report what a politician has said. It is not enough just to report in verbatim what the chairperson of IEBC has said, but it will be very important also to dig deeper and give a critical analysis of the things that those politicians or the stakeholders have said. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lucas, and please pass our gratitude to the Secretariat of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Those men and women always stand in the gap. And Daisy, I'm stepping in for us. Now, Janet, I know that you've been in the media a long time, but you also know that you are here on behalf of an organization. From 2007, our election observation has not been very remarkable. And I don't know where the problem is. In Tanzania, where they had a pretend election 2 years ago, because it wasn't an election, they had a pretend election 2 years ago. They just decided, by the way, they are not even accrediting observers. They decided they're not accrediting observers. And they went ahead with this. Here, I don't know, I think the story is different. And the reason I'm bringing this perspective here is because if you compare what happened in Zambia last year, was that the election observation was so on point that using technology and something called PVT, parallel vote tabulation, they were actually able, observers were able to obviate any fears about election interference. ELOG has been in business since KEDOF closed. I don't know if Koki is still listening. Koki, yeah, Koki was there with KEDOF, and because of the problems observed around election observation, ELOG now came in, and I hope it's e-compliant. Please talk to us about ELOG very briefly. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, my senior Mr. Kwamchetsi Makoha. My name is Janet Chapia. I work at the Elections Observation Group Secretariat. I'm in charge of communications there. And just to brief you on ELOG, it's a citizen-based election platform. This means that we observe elections on behalf of the citizenry, and we observe elections from different angles. There are themes that guide us while doing our observation work. One of these areas is legal reforms, where we look at the various laws that affect elections in the country and generally electoral processes. We also look at the area of voter education. Media monitoring is another angle that we observe elections from. We also observe elections from the theme of participation of special interest groups. These are the marginalized, women and the youth. And we also monitor elections from the angle of electoral violence, where we observe and keep data of the cases of electoral violence and whether they've been addressed or not. So ELOG has been in existence for slightly over 10 years. And as I said, it's a group that comprises of different civil society organizations and faith-based organizations. So as a group, we are always concerned about the state of electoral preparedness. This electoral cycle is not different from the previous cycles, and there are issues that we've been speaking to. One of these issues still remains the issue of legal reforms. We are in February, mid-February right now, and we know that elections are slightly over 5 months away. However, there are still some pending laws that need to be enacted. This is a major concern for ELOG. We know from the Kriegler report there was a recommendation that laws should not be changed too close to the elections. However, what we are seeing right now is not what should be happening. Some of these laws, there are election amendments bill, which already is causing an uproar in the political circles. We know the media already has been accused of misrepresenting facts. And the Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Journalists has just spoken a few minutes ago saying the media misled the country. I don't know how we are going to remedy this, but from our end, tomorrow we are having a discussion with some of the political journalists where we'll be sharing insights on that particular bill. We are also concerned about the preparedness of the IEBC. We know for sure the commission is underfunded, and there is no way the commission is going to undertake an effective to conduct an effective election without proper planning. Money, funds is an important consideration when it comes to planning. The IEBC needs to procure materials. IEBC needs to renew licenses of their systems, and just generally. Just procure all that is needed for the coming election. So without these funds, we know that IEBC may not be able to deliver a credible election. Case in point, they just ended ECBR. We know the commission didn't have funds to even conduct voter education. That is a concern for us as ELOG as well. Another concern we have is the issue of early campaigns. I'm sure if you ask the politicians whether they are campaigning, they'll tell you not. And probably they are not campaigning because according to IEBC, campaigns should start around May, but they're already crisscrossing the country, they're already holding political rallies. We know this is illegal. We know this is not supposed to be happening. We've spoken to it severally, but I think it's fallen on deaf ears. So as an organization, we still ask political parties and politicians to wait for the campaign period, the official campaign period, and restrain and practice restraint when holding those political rallies. There is also the issue of incitement and inflammatory remarks. Case in point of a politician in Uasin Gishu some few weeks ago, who probably made some remarks that would have been deemed inflammatory. I know the NCIC is already on that case, and we hope that justice will prevail. So on Mr. Makoha's question on PPT, as ILOG will be invested in this. I think we'll be setting it up by around May or April, where we'll also do test runs. So that should not be our major worry for us. We are IT compliant. Yeah. Thank you so much, and we appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. Don't we just love editors? They are brief and to the point. Now, Daisy, you are the one who is standing between our tea bathroom break, but I know you will do a good job. Now, the brief I had was to make your life difficult. So let me try. Civil society in Kenya has gone through major transitions. I know that the Public Benefit Organizations Act has not been operationalized since it was passed in 2013. It's a very hostile environment. The money has reduced, and we always are glad that we have our partners here from the British High Commission and Denmark. But we always look with frowns, when civil society seek money from outside Kenya. And now, one of the things that we're also trying not to do this year is we are telling donors not to give money to the Electoral Commission. Yeah, but we will come back to that when we have space for the chair of the Electoral Commission or his representative. Lindsay, and adding to that also is the fact that I think the acting CEO of IEBC saying that they are only mandated to provide voter education, not civic education. So how do you think civil society is able to fill that role of providing political education? Because from all the problems we have had here today, it looks like this country has a political problem. And the only people who think that they can solve it is to provide political education and civil society. You have your 10 minutes, ma'am.
Thank you, Kwamchetsi, and good morning. I think that in light of all the difficulties that you have highlighted with regards to civil society and the hostility, particularly under this administration, the hostility that civil society has been working under, I think civil society has done particularly well. First of all, in terms of being able to give pushback against erosion of certain constitutional gains that we have celebrated since we promulgated the new constitution. Because sometimes I wonder, even as we go to the 2022 general elections, you wouldn't even believe that we have a new constitutional order. It is like Kenya has backslidden completely, It's like we are operating in 2007 and even in some instances pre-1991 when Moi promulgated, amended the constitution, repealed section 2A to allow for multi-partyism. So that's the kind of environment that we have been operating in. you know, where you have a very authoritarian government that seeks to escape accountability and demonize those who demand that accountability and seek to hold them to the constitutional standards that is required of their offices. So I think that we need to appreciate very much the role that civil society has played. While we celebrate, you know, we've celebrated the judiciary, but we must remember that the judiciary does not move themselves. They do not move themselves, they are moved. And they have been moved by civil society seeking to safeguard those gains. So civil society has really done a commendable job even in the midst of the difficulty. We must also appreciate that the first administration under the new constitution has also opened up several battlefronts. I think we came from a place where with Kibaki, the space was so democratized, we never really imagined that we would have to fight against the closing of that democratic space. So there's been like a rude awakening, let me say, whereby you have government actively fighting and demonizing and running campaigns against civil society, mainly because, as I said earlier on, that they are seeking to escape that accountability. So we've got to appreciate that even in ensuring the space remains open, civil society have done their job. Yes, there is the challenge of donor dependency. And that donor dependency is something that we actually must actively address. Because if we value the role that civil society plays, because on some fronts, remember that civil society is not just there to criticize government. In some instances, and we must look at government as being just beyond political players, we work in collaboration with several state agencies, whether it is the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties or IEBC, or Kenya Human Rights Commission, Kenya National Human Rights Commission. There is a lot of collaborative work that goes into a lot of the work that is done by many of these state agencies that civil society augments, right? And if we really appreciate that role, in the same manner that there has been a push, although it is the politicians who have pushed for funding to go to political parties, we should have the same mindset where resources are set aside for funding, local funding of civil society organizations, including in the democracy and governance sphere. Because let's not forget that the civil societies that are fought are particularly those that are in operation within the democracy and governance sphere. Those are the ones that have borne the brunt of you know, some of the campaigns against civil society, being called foreign agents and all that. However, the state has a responsibility in recognizing the role that civil societies do play and should actively look at ways of resourcing those civil societies, because the donor dependency has its challenges. And remember, you mentioned about the government instructing donors not to support IEBC. In the same vein, we will recall that in 2016, during the Jamhuri Day speech, the president actually said that Kenyans do not need civic education. And the effect of that was that donors were then somehow curtailed from supporting efforts at providing civil society, including through civil society organizations. And that is one of the things that we've seen, whereby donors, in trying to strike a balance, they are working relationships with government, because we know that their relationships go beyond just funding civil society organizations. They have development agreements with their host country. And so they have to be alive to some of the intricacies of, you know, being in that host country. And we have seen the government engage in bare-knuckle diplomacy whereby even the donors themselves have to look at how to strike a balance between not offending their host nation and being able to deliver on some of what they believe are fundamental roles in terms of ensuring the democratic space does not close. We have seen, I mean, we recall IDLO getting caught up in the crosshairs of government and government wanting them out of the country. So it has been a major challenge, and I think for me, this is a lesson that we must learn. Today, working with the media also has been a great ally, by the way, of civil society, and has supported civil society in very many ways, I think, even in the midst of the challenges that we have experienced, in being able to give a platform and a voice to a lot of the work that civil society is doing, but also a platform and a voice to be able to carry out some of the civic education, civic awareness, and political education that is there. We all have a responsibility to safeguard the democratic space that we fought for and had enshrined within our constitution, which we gave to ourselves. And any administration that seeks to close that space should be challenged, not just by civil societies, but by everyone. Because a closing of space means also the media will also fall into those challenges, and I think we've seen it. So even as we go into 2022, it is not just the role of civil society to provide civic education and political education. That role also falls on the media to help us to amplify the voices of civil society and educate the public, because we can't do this without you. And also call out government on, or politicians or leaders, you know, because we may talk of government, but government is huge. So let's really talk about the politicians, those who run smear campaigns and hate campaigns against civil society organizations, and cast aspersions on those civil society organizations, calling them foreign agents, because that's actually, in fact, you will find that a lot of the time civil society has been accused of engaging in what is called regime change. I think that's been one of the biggest accusations that we have suffered. But we must remember, elections are about regime change. That's what elections are about. And lawfully, Kenyans are given the right every 5 years to effect regime change. And so, in supporting Kenyans to be able to make decisions from an informed perspective becomes our responsibility as civil society organizations. And you know that while the politicians are daily obsessed with the political arena and how they are going to get elected and how they are going to profile themselves, we must remember that Kenyans are not sitting at home wondering who to vote for. Kenyans are grappling with many issues. And so we cannot assume that they know exactly how to vote. We cannot assume that they understand their rights and entitlements. Therefore, it becomes our responsibility in the midst of all the political noise to deliver to them civic education and a political education that can help them make the right choice. If that means that we must risk being called foreign agents, then so be it. We must push our government also to recognize that we have the right of that space in the same way that we talk about the right of, the right of our political rights under Article 38. As civil society, we reserve that right. If the only place that we can get funding is from the development partners that value democracy, then that is where we will get it. But the government, or we need to push our government to also start seeing the value of civil society and begin to resource it. Irungu is here, he pushed. He was at the forefront of the push for the enactment of the Public Benefits Authorities, the Public Benefits Organizations Act. We have never held Jubilee President Uhuru Kenyatta to account, one of the promises that he made in his manifesto of 2013, at the election of 2013, was a guarantee, one, that he would work with civil society, that they were actually going to set up a charities commission, you know, and they would look at ways of working collaboratively. This is something we never held him to. And I think that even moving forward, we need to hold our leaders to account, particularly on issues that work towards closing this democratic space. So with those many remarks, let me stop there.
Thank you. Please appreciate the panel. You know, I'm very lucky because, you know, when you have an intelligent panel, yeah, things just flow.
Thank you very much for this invite. Joyce Ekwang, the Acting Director of Voter Education, Partnerships and Communications with IEBC. We are glad to be here with you this morning. And I want to begin by passing the regards of the Chairman, IEBC, Wafula Chebukati, who was very keen to be with you here in this forum, but is not been able to be here with us because of other competing business priorities that he's dealing with in the office. He has instructed that we plan for another meeting like this one at his posts and invite all of us to attend that particular meeting in the early month of March, so that he stabilizes the country as he discusses the state of preparedness of the electoral management body. Straight to several issues I would want to speak to before I come to respond to key issues raised around voter registration and about the full establishment of the election management body. I would want to state that we, as election management body in Kenya, is on track. We are ready to conduct the elections come the August 8th, 2022. Our state of preparedness is strongly backed by a comprehensive legal framework for elections in this country. We have the Constitution, we have the Election Acts and several other acts. We have regulations, we have procedures, we have guidelines that will guide the conduct of election. IEBC has received funding from government, though not in total to what we had requested. And you remember last week, we also pitched our discussion around funding for elections with Parliament. And we are hopeful that we are going to get the balance of what we needed to plug in and to support our activities. Number two, you're aware that the board is fully established. We have all the commissioners and the chair, and they are able now to sit and dispense ideas that concern or that going to affect the conduct of elections in this country as far as strategy and oversight is concerned. The filling of vacant positions, especially in the secretariat, from the returning officers who will be hands-on in the conduct of this election, is complete. We have the 290 constituency elections coordinators who will be turning into returning officers when we come to elections, so that establishment is full. and there is a lot of training and capacity building as far as their preparation is concerned. We also ready in as far as building capacity of various groups we are working with, including media, and therefore the trainings and sessions that are geared towards building capacity are scheduled. So we are working with the Kenya Media Sector Group, we are working with other various groups, stakeholders, observers, and all that. We're going to roll out accreditation management system for election observers, for media and water education providers. And the advert will be out end of February 2022. So as I was listening to my colleagues speaking, I was asking myself that everybody's mandate is clear on their table, and they are able to, with clarity, speak into what their mandate is concerned as far as stabilizing the country is concerned. And I was asking myself, what is there more to do? What is there more to do? Because that is what where the gist of the matter is. Because the Kenyans are still looking at us, expecting more. And when we answer that question, therefore, we need to come up with strategies, with things that are deliberate and intentional in building more trust and confidence in the electoral process and in the elections of August 2022. We need to talk about what we can do as duty bearers to bring hope in the country, among the citizenry, and go beyond the call of duty. Because when you talk about our mandate, that's your duty. Therefore, when we talk, we need now to speak deeper into something more that we need to do so that we address the situation in the country and the way it is. And for me, what we need to be talking about is to bring hope to Kenya, is to bring out the Kenyan spirit, to speak into the national heritage, to speak into the spirit of Kenyanness. And all the duty bearers should come together in the spirit of cooperation and not competition, so that we together can come together and speak life to the situation in the country. Our goal, therefore, as I said, is to bring back hope to every Kenyan that cuts across gender, cuts across age, cuts across even economic status of individuals in this country. We need to resolve as a media sector not to air what brings disrepute to the institutions of governance, not to air things that will bring down the fabric of Kenyanness, not to air inflammatory remarks from very respected people in this country, so that we black out that and save our psyche as a nation from such disparaging activities. We need to speak to a national heritage issue. What is being Kenyan? What are the national values that we so much pride in our constitution? We need to bring in things that will add value to the quality of life, so that we don't see Kenyans as just people to be used. We should build capacity, even for us here and in the citizenry, to enable them to make informed choices. And therefore, we need to point this country as a Kenyan media sector, point Kenya to a common, shared, prosperous, stable future. We need to do accurate reporting we need to put things into true perspective, and we need to correct the posturing of our psyche as a nation through our reporting. We need to empower citizens with knowledge, 1, 2, with skills, and 3, with the right attitude to participate in both social and economic lives. And we also need to educate and sensitize, especially the youth of this country, the value of their vote, the connection between the value of their vote and the quality of life that they are going to lead. Therefore, I would now going to respond to the two issues about the targets we had for voter registrations, the new voter registrations. We have carried out 2 drives, and the 3rd drive is doing a continuous voter registration in our constituency offices countrywide. 2, we have not hit the target, and you're aware that this country is facing a lot of challenges. Kenyans are facing a lot of challenges. Economic hardships, hopelessness, lack of jobs. The youth have spoken that we need to set out an agenda to address those issues first before they participate. But let me go back to what I have said. We need all to go out to inform and sensitize, educate the youth, the connection between the value of their vote and the quality of life. Number 2, the issue of our establishment in IBC, especially in senior management. The adverts went out to fill the vacancies in the office of the CEO, the office of the deputy CEO, we all saw it, and the senior directors in IBC. That advert is now closed and the recruitment process is ongoing. But let me tell you this, that even those who are in acting capacity have been IBC for the last 10 years. And therefore, we are equal to the task, even in acting capacity, to be responsible and to be accountable for the decisions we make, sitting on those positions, because first and foremost, we are Kenyans. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Joyce. I would like to open up this forum now, and I would like to see by show of hands a number of people who would like to either raise questions or make contributions. We will take those together, and then if kindly indicate the person whom you'd like to respond to your question. Then they can mark them down. So Daisy, Janet, Madam Derito has left, but she has somebody from her office, Lucas, and Janet. Yes, I can see the first hand. Kindly, very brief, please. We are going to share this time. So we start there. You will be second. Janak will be third. Let's take those 3 first. And I'm standing here so that if you see me tapping the microphone, it means you've spoken too much.
Hey, thank you, Kwamchetsi, and to all the panelists for that wonderful and insightful conversation. My question is related to Angelitu. It said she's left, but there's a representative who's still here. So it's with regards to the issue of Kenyans finding themselves registered in political parties without consent. There's a time the registrar and the Data Protection Commissioner held a meeting with the Secretary Generals of political parties, and they were told not to hold those Kenyans without their consent if they're not interested. And I'm wondering to myself, it's been a year since then, but as recently as last week, I was in a conversation with some people who are complaining that they are finding themselves in parties that they are no interest in joining in the first place. Obviously, it's not in the interest of those political parties to remove these members because to them those are numbers. So can something really be done to ensure that that happens? Because a lot of people don't even know in the first place that they were.
And you're Tom Jalio, right?
Yes, Tom Jalio.
Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Josephat Waima, MC aspirant Fongara. My question goes to Joyce from IEBC. I would like to know from IEBC, why is it that, as you very well know, everybody is entitled to vote anywhere in the Republic of Kenya. But during the previous mass voter registration, it happened that, because I want to know whether this was directly from the IEBC or it was violation of rights of the people who wanted to transfer their votes. If you wanted to transfer your vote, for example, if you move from, let's say, at the river to Nairobi, more preferably, for example, to Muthaiga, and then you want to register there, as far as the clerks for the registration of transfer of voters were concerned, they were telling people to go for the letters from the area chief to prove residence. Is this constitutional?
My call would be that, especially within the Editors Guild and the media sector, we must prepare in a better way than it has been. And I recall this because of 2007. I mean, when the post-election violence happened, the media virtually folded up. It was only after the violence that people ran back to the ground. And once they ran back to the ground, then the people who were the senior guys, reporters who had taken to the field, were airlifted back to Nairobi or facilitated. But then the journalists who were left on the ground suffered because there was no provision for them, there was no support. So that is a point that we must begin to think about, because there are many conflict environments. And at that point, we had what we call the internally displaced journalists who have never been supported in any way. Perhaps the last thing I would like to say is that the different duty bearers, IEBC, registered political parties, I think there's a lot more discussion that we need to have between now and the election period in terms of comparing notes on preparedness, so that then we close the gaps.
Thank you very much. Olo Janab is the chair of the Kenya Correspondents Association. He has a very large constituency, so I need to be very careful about limiting his time.
Asante kwa my name is Gasheke. I'm from Mathare Social Justice Center. My question, maybe can be answered by the representative of police or the media. Early warning, there is a lot of violence. If one candidate goes from Nairobi to Mathare, Juja Road to Roy, the whole livelihood that there is destroyed. There are a lot of criminality, violence, horrible. And I have not seen this in the headline. IEBC, I don't know. I think there is a lot. There is a low-fare violence going down that is not reported. With the young kids with motorbike, politicians mobilizing those violence. A lot of police stations in Eastland, they are full of motorbikes that are being detained every day. This is building up to a very major crisis. And I warn, because sometimes, like Olo said, 207, even IEBC, I don't think they have a capacity to detect this. The police is in horrible situation. Nowadays, ya kwa hapo pia, unaongea na Inspector General. Sijui kama amepata hii report because there is a lot of violence happening.
Sawa ndugu yangu.
So nauliza kwamba wanaweza tuelezea kwamba hata Director of Intelligence a report ya kwamba the problem we are facing is not only President should be receiving these briefs, because we are facing a major crisis of violence of young people in Nairobi.
Loud and clear. We have no.
My question goes to the Kenya Union of Journalists, Chief Kodua. Raised a very important aspect of employing journalists to these 290 constituencies. It's been there that Sasa, every station reports according to their needs and according to their interest. But is it possible that we can come up with something so that wakihesabu pia sisi as journalists tunahesabu, so that at the end of the day we tally the results, the IEBC na hizi zetu tumepata kwa ground. I think it will be a very important point na itatusaidia. Thank you.
Thank you.
from the Standard newspaper. My question to Editors Guild is about the safety of journalists when covering elections. In 2017, I was covering Mathare elections constituency, and
James, I'm going to interrupt you so that I ask you to speak as a journalist.
Okay.
Brief to the point question.
okay, my question is, what is Editors Guild doing to ensure that journalists will be covering elections are secure in terms of safety, etc.? Thanks.
My name is Leonard Omaro from West TV. My question goes to the Registrar of Political Parties, as much as she has left. I'm told there is someone who is stepping in. So, about the new bill or the new law on the primaries, from the open to the closed, what is the Registrar of Political Parties, that is the custodian of the membership of party of people who are members of political parties? What mechanisms are you going to put in place to ensure that the parties or the members who participate in each political party's primaries are strictly the members of that party? Thank you.
Thank you. I think I will take those three last ones and then we will run. We take that one, we take Odhiambo, Lale, and you.
Yes, my name is Peter Mburu from Daily Nation. I would like to direct my question to the representative of IEBC. You attribute the low voter turnout to hopelessness, how Kenyans are suffering. I don't know whether IEBC is in possession of some empirical evidence or what is the basis of that assertion.
Okay. You.
Thank you very much. My question is to IEBC. Year in, year out, we are told how the IEBC, before it was ECK, is prepared. Can you confirm to us how prepared you are? Because we don't want to prepare for the elections and we find that on the day of the election, like we had it in the past, the screen that journalists are polling with the results goes blank and then issue of credibility. What are you doing other than just telling us here that you are working on the credibility, because you have a very serious credibility problem right now. Thank you. Maybe that's why the voter turnout is low.
Thank you very much. Last question.
Mathare Radio, and actually my question goes to the police, because when we are at the ground, what we see, especially, yes, when we are at the ground, actually during political parties and rallies, actually what we see at the ground does not even reflect if the police department is ready. Because whenever a certain party leader gets out
I
from...
will go easy on the example, just ask the question.
Whenever a party leader or a certain politician comes out from a rally, what is experienced before this kind of a person is kind of how do we call it? Wezi, wanaiba, furuga.
You are not asking the question.
I am asking. So I want to know what kind of preparedness are they putting on the ground to ensure this is not happening.
Thank you. We'll start with the office of the registrar.
To step out for another engagement. Quick answers. I will start with my brother over there. What we are doing in terms of rectifying the question of recruitment without consent. I think already we have established a system through eCitizen. Now, members of the public or anyone can resign, join, or even check membership status on eCitizen. We are moving a notch higher by way of introducing a USSD code that will be up and running this week, so that one on mobile, you can just dial. I think I will have the privilege of announcing *509 hash, and you enjoy the services there. So in terms of the consent, you will be seeking. Any party will be stating a consent note to you so that you can consent or not. Thank you. On the question of certified list, it is in law right now that all parties must get a certified list of membership before nominations, precisely 7 days before the date of nominations? Thank you. I think those are the questions, and I appreciate the question. My closing remarks, my coordinator said, we call upon you. I know you are people with great responsibility and great influence, so let's be part of the bandwagon in amplifying the credible messages that we have discussed throughout the morning here, in terms of, in your personal accounts, in your corporate accounts, so that we build trust, as my sister in IBC has said. Thank you very much.
Did you give us a shortcut? Yeah?
Yes. Up and running *509 hash. Thank you. *509 hash. Thank you.
Okay. If Joyce is ready, this would be a good opportunity to do 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Allow me to respond to the 3 issues raised on the floor of the House. One is why our registration officers were asking for proof of residence. And a letter from the chief was one of them. Utility bills like water, electricity, and all that were others. This is what the law states. And this is connected highly with the issue of credibility of the register of voters. I know there is an issue around costs transferred to voters, like traveling costs, meals, and all that when they are participating in any electoral process, like registration, voting, and all that. And we are also very sure that Kenyans or leaders will not want to be elected, or citizens of a certain constituency will not be happy if non-residents of that constituency decides for them the kind of leader that they would want to have. So the issues of voter importation, transfers, and all that informs the spirit of asking all Kenyans wanting to transfer their voting stations to go to the constituency offices. Why the constituency offices? This is where the custodians of constituency registers are, and they are the returning officers. Those are the people who are responsible for their constituency registers of voters. We have one principal register of voters, yes, that comprises of the county register, the constituency register, and the ward-based registers. And this is why we are asking people to go and prove residence to the returning officers who are the custodians of these registers. Number 2, why we are really tying the idea of not turning out to register to the situation, to the environmental factors happening. We have had engagement forums with the youth through our youth coordinating committee of IBC, and these issues that the youth of this country have spoken to the issues that affect them as individuals in this country, and their disengagement. Because we have asked them, why are you not participating? They say we are not participating because we're busy looking for our livelihoods, looking for jobs, and looking for all that things that are paramount to their lives other than voting. So this has come through our engagement forums with the targeted populations, and that are the youth. Number 3 issue is how prepared is IBC? And I was asking myself, what aspect of preparedness are you asking? Because we have talked about recruitment, we have talked about filling the vacant positions, we have talked about many other things, recruitments, the procurements, and all that. But when you were talking, I got to know really the kind of aspect you wanted me to speak to as far as preparedness is concerned. It was surrounding election transmission results for the presidential election. To this I respond by saying that we have election transmission framework that we have cleaned up. We have interrogated that path, and we are clear on what kind of aspects we need to talk about and to tighten as far as the transmission of presidential election results will be from the polling station to the constituency, to the county, and to the national tallying center. To this, we are also training our staff on what is expected, including even the temporal staff we will be employing in terms of presiding officers, the clerks working at the polling stations. This we are keen to do. Political party agents is also another target group that we really want to have a sitting with and to agree on how we're going to introduce credibility in this process. Are credible and what we're doing to improve our credibility. I want to say that credibility is an external aspect. It is external people watching you who will tell you you're credible. So therefore, what we are doing around credibility is that we're opening communication channels. We are sharing with all the key stakeholders what our plans are and what we are doing around credible elections in this country. And we are working with stakeholders and partners to ensure that this is also out there and well communicated, and everybody is invited at the table to have credibility introduced in all what we do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joyce. I can't see Janet Chapia.
Thank you, my brother. The first question was criminality and violence that we witness when we see those huge crowds gathering for campaign rallies. Now, what is the role of police when they attend such functions? Human beings by nature are very disorderly, so the presence of police gives the assurance of order. So first of all, we create order and we give the assurance of safety of the lives of the persons who are there, so that they don't hurt themselves through, the stampedes. And if at all there's somebody there who could be having, a different mindset. We saw the other day in the media a gentleman slapped a woman who was expressing a different viewpoint from what was obtaining at that point in time. And as far as we have given that communication, the gentleman was arrested. And the rest, I will leave it at that. So that is basically what police do. But I also want to ask, the previous speaker said something about the value of the vote, or the correlation between the vote and the quality of life. What much sense does it make for that youth who attends that rally? Does he go there knowing the value of the vote? I like this meeting because it brings all stakeholders together. This is something that we need to address. My sister from the civil society mentioned that there's a need for education, civic education in Kenyans, so that we know that a young person, young people in developed societies are an asset. But it has come to a point where our young people are viewed largely not as an asset as such, but as tools by certain sections of the society and as threat by yet another section of the society. So that they are coming together either portends, for those who bring them, for whatever reason, a tool for use to achieve their ends, and for those who may not even be interested in that, as a threat that once the meeting or something of that nature is over, we're going to witness criminality, and sometimes it does happen. Now, our preparedness is what I want to call our preparedness now in the context of all stakeholders. Our preparedness is not what we're going to wait to do when the youth, the young people turn criminal. If we could equip these young people, and I want to call upon us to do that, with the requisite information so that they understand that the political process is not about that individual, but about their future, then we end up with a better society. Last, I can see you kind of indicating to me that my time is over. I want to say that policing is at various levels. The primary level of policing actually is something which happens at home. We police officers are at the very tertiary level of policing. When somebody is now being arrested by police, that is the very, very tail end of policing. So what do we teach our children right from home? And for us in the media, think about it. It almost looks to me like what stinks is what sells for the media. What about that which smells good? I want to give you a case in point. In 2007, that GSU officer who made a statement which made a difference, and the media escalated it. What if we had more of that? Would we not change the perception of the society? Food for thought.
I like this policeman. Lucas, you have 1 point to make. Daisy has ceded her space, and when Lucas finishes, then it will be Pamela to answer on behalf of the game. Let me stand here so I can intimidate you.
Thank you. My closing remarks, just one brief story that in society and matters to do with political issues, in terms of popularity, in terms of what people want to hear, talk to the politician. The politician will tell us what we want to hear. The time slice. 2, it will be the religious leaders who will pacify the situation, however bad it will be. 3, in terms of popularity, is the journalist who will do the analysis and do mass media, and inform the community. And therefore, that places journalists, editors, and all the people working in the media at a very important place. Lastly, I want to say that as an institution, we started our monitoring process, and I would want, with your permission, to share a toll-free line that we are giving to the members of the public for purposes of sharing any information in terms of human rights violations. The number is 0800-720-627. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. Yes, my boss. Let me just age her a little and tell you, my boss, my senior, my mentor.
Thank you, Conchesi. You can add big sister to that.
Yes,
that's the most powerful one. I have 2 questions to respond to. The first one was directed at KUJ, so I'll try to wear Eric's hat and answer that. And it was about, can the media have their own results? This has been a controversial issue. We know that according to the law, the final results are actually the results that are released at a polling station. But we also know that IEBC is very clear that it is the only one that is mandated to announce the winner. So you can look at it this way. You can actually report the results as they come in, but it is not your mandate to declare the winner. That is IEBC's mandate. And I'm really encouraged here by ELOG and their parallel vote tabulation system that they have talked about. I think that's an idea that would have saved us a lot of heartache and a lot of deaths in 2007 if we had a system like that. So I hope it will be allowed to proceed with that system so that we shall have a credible alternative to look at if IEBC decides to play games with us, but we don't think they're going to play games. The second question is on the issue of safety of journalists. And what I'd like to say is, I think we have to look at safety of journalists at 3 levels. So it begins with the journalist herself or himself. You need to be aware of what is going on around you, and you need training to have that self-awareness and to understand when to act and how to act in certain situations. Towards that end, I know that there's training planned and ongoing training at different levels by the Kenya Correspondents Association, the Kenya Union of Journalists, KEG. So we are conducting that kind of training for the individual journalists to know how to avoid danger and how to behave when you're in a dangerous situation and where to seek help and how to seek help. At a second level is the institutional level, where if you're attached to a media house, that media house should be worrying about the security and safety of its journalists and putting certain things in place, including knowing that when journalists are going to a volatile area, for example, they might need to wear helmets or they might need bulletproof jackets. So that is at the institutional level. And then the third level is at the societal level, where we expect that society, including the police and other security forces and the members of the public, will be sensitized enough to know how to protect journalists and to understand the role that the journalist plays, so that journalists are not targeted at a community level when there's a fracas. So that is how we are proposing to deal with the issue of safety of journalists. And if all the three levels work, then we should have an election where journalists are free to cover the elections, but are also doing it in a safe environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What I would say is, Kenya Editors Guild is a civil society organization. We are journalists, yes, but now when we come together as KEG, it means we are now a civil society organization. So we are in this dialogue business. We are in what Olojanak was talking about. We are being a public, this is the public-facing side of journalism, where we also say we would like to perform our national duty, to do civic education, to do public information. This is just the first of a series of conversations that we hope that we are able to have. At this point, I think my duty is done, so I'm going to ask a trustee of the Kenya Editors Guild, Mr. Martin Masai, to come and do the honors. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother Kwamchesi. You've done a wonderful job giving people opportunity to express themselves. I would probably want just to make some closing remarks, and I'll be very brief. I want to acknowledge the participation of the following. We've had ELOC here, we've had Kenya, and you need to forgive me if I say it wrongly, Kenya Commission of Human Rights, Kenya National Commission of Human Rights, on human rights. Very well, thank you. We have Daisy and Danny here with the civil society. We have Mr. Jok, a National Police Service, the IEBC. We have many organizations here from the media fraternity. Let me say that if you are playing a match, if we assume we are preparing for a match, we have everyone in this house here. We have the referees of the umpires. We have linesmen here among us. We have the match commissars here to preside over this big match that is coming up in August. We have observers, we have players of the VAR, just in case we didn't get it right. We have the police, and I guess we also have spies here. In this crowd, we have whistleblowers here. And I'm sure we also have groundsmen to make sure that the net in the goalmouth is properly fixed. One key player who is here, who is not listed here, but I've had a key representative, is a player, the MCR aspirant. They are the players. And when I listen to this conversation, all these parties here, they have indicated, including IEBC, that they are all prepared. Or is there any organization here which would say they're not prepared for this election? Let me say that credibility is what is going to deliver what we do. And we have to just do it ethically. I chair the ethics committee of the Editors Guild, and I will fail if I will not say this, that we have to do what we do with honesty, with transparency, all of us. This is not just the media, including the media. Transparency, we have to show objectivity in the decisions we make. There has to be a sense of accountability, obedience to the law, really, is the main hinge. Obedience to the law, loyalty to our country. My brother has indicated what journalists are doing here. We are doing this because we love this country. There is that political class which is not here, which has always made it look like media people don't like their country when they are being told the truth. We love this country. That's why we are here. We're organizing this, and we're going to organize many more. Confidentiality when it applies. Respect for others must be key to what you're doing. And truthfulness. If what you do is underlined by those values, then issues of credibility will have been sorted. The output that we get out there is what is going to redeem this country. So, if we are so set, as we have said here throughout, I think time has come for us to get out and do the work. There's this song, work for the night is coming. The night is swiftly approaching. Let's practice what we have been talking about here, that we are able to do. For if we fail to do what we ought to do, all of us, we are sailing in the same boat. This republic is in our hands. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just do what we ought to do.